Good morning, my YouTube viewers. In this video, what we're going to talk about is the basic input and output mechanisms in Python. Python provides several input and output mechanisms within the language, but this section of the course is going to cover the few basic functions of Python. So you've got input function, and that's used to take input from the user as a string. And then you've got print function, which is the most common way to display the output. You also have a sys module, which is inbuilt in Python that handles command line inputs. And you've got the logging module that's used for a structured output. So the first thing we're going to look at is the input and the print function. And when we look at the input and the print function, what we're going to look at is a program that I had previously written or previously acquired. And this program is for calculating factorials. So we've got the function that I wrote or somebody else wrote to calculate the factorials. And then we have an example usage. So the user input equals int brackets input brackets enter a positive integer. And so on the input, it enters the data as a string. And then on the int, converts the string into an integer. And then we have the factorial result equals calculate factorial. That's the function. And it's going to accept the user input as the input. And then we're going to print the factorial of the user input is factorial result. And so what this program actually does is it calculates factorials. So if we come over here and we click on to run, we'll say run module, and it says enter a positive integer. So we're just going to say 4 to start with. And we press enter, and then the 4 is entered as a string, but what it does is it converts it 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which is 24. So we're going to go back to the program again. We're going to run it again. We're going to run module. And then we're going to press 5. And it's 120. And so we're just going to do it one more time just so you can see how a factorial works if you don't already know how a factorial works. So we're going to click 6, and that's 720. And so basically, that's going to be 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, and that will give you a 720. And that's basically how the factorial operates. But what we're focusing on in this video is the input function and the print function. And you've got the input function and the print function in this program. And so the next thing that we can do is to, in order to demonstrate the other functions, we're going to come over here to Instant Python, which is our cheap and cheerful. And we're going to write a program in Instant Python using the command line arguments. So we're going to import sys. So that's like a system, inbuilt system module. And we're going to print arguments. and we're going to go sys.argv. And I don't use this a lot. I don't use the sys function a lot. So, but this is just another thing that you can do. It is another input-output function. So we're going to start it. And so this is the argument, and it gives you, well, it gives you the argument. And so when you get into web development, you probably would have to know how to use the sys function or the sys library. So the next one that we have is we're going to say, and this doesn't work. I couldn't get it to do anything, but it says we're using a for line. That's a for statement in. So I couldn't get this to do anything, but I'm just showing it to you just in case you want to try it on your computer. And it didn't do anything. But just in case you want to try this code on your computer, maybe it'll do something. And then so when we print sys.stdin, it gives you some information as well. And if you get involved in web development, you will need to know how to do that. So now the next one we're going to do is I'm going to try this. So I don't really use logging a lot either, but we'll give it a try. Hopefully it'll work. So I got a syntax error. Try it again. Let me come over here where I got the code. Okay. We'll just copy it because I don't use this a lot. But if you get into web development, you will need to use it. So that's why I decided to do it. It said info root. This is an info message. So that's your basic input and output functions in Python. They've got some more input and output functions, like with reading files, because but we're not going to do that in this particular lesson because this is just the basics. But as you get into the course, then we're going to go into reading and writing to files. But that's not covered in this video. So that's it. So we covered input, print, sys, and logging. And the main ones that you need to concern yourself in this part of the course are input and print. The other ones that if you get into web development, then you probably will need to be aware of it. And that's why I have included it in this video. That, as I said, I don't really use it, but I decided to make it available to you just so you'll know it's there, so you can use it if you decide to get into web development. So thank you, and I will be communicating with you in the next video.